everybody, and welcome back to the Blue Jays Today Show, where today we've got to talk about the aftermath of the Jordan Romano situation. A lot of people were very upset, but a lot of people see and understand why the Blue Jays management did what they did, and we're going to break down and reveal kind of what the thinking process was behind cutting Jordan Romano and what kind of moves they can make now that he's off the team. And as well, a big quote was dropped by Bob Nightingale talking about a little bit of insider info, and he thinks the Blue Jays are going to do something very, very big as well this offseason. We heard that before, but let's talk about it again because we're waiting for those winter meetings to come up, and there's going to be a lot of things happening. So before we get into it, guys, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Playalog. The whole Jordan Romano stuff was super split. Like, I almost feel like it's old news at this point, but I feel like it only feels like it's old news because we were kind of building ourselves up for it.
Yeah.
It is still a blow, right? To lose somebody of Jordan Romano's capabilities and caliber. That's assuming, of course, he gets back to where he was. And I do think that a big reason as to why they decided to inevitably let him go is the health and the ongoings of that elbow, which we are not privy to. They obviously have a much better understanding of things, and I guess for them there was just a little bit too much risk for the amount of reward that you could have gotten, and that is especially true when you think about some of the going rates of bullpen guys these days. There's who was it that tweeted this out?
Scott Mitchell came out with a tweet.
Scott Mitchell was talking about effectively the money that you would have been spending on Jordan Romano, and then if you were to reallocate said money, what you could instead decide to get.
Yeah, you could probably get two very solid bullpen arms. This is what Scott Mitchell's coming out with for the about $8 million Romano was going to get in arbitration. So, yeah, I mean, if that's the theory, you could get two bullpen arms, and I guess it would make sense just based on the depth right now. I mean, hell, I think about, like, my fantasy football team, and when I had one very good player, you know, in Mr. Breece Hall, I'm like, well, I don't have anybody else than Breece Hall, but I need to get more depth here in my lineup, so I turn him into two solid RB2s. It's kind of the thinking here where, well, Romano could be good. That's also the risk inside. Like, we knew Breece Hall was great, but, you know, in that situation. But there's a little bit of risk involved with Jordan Romano with that injury. So you want to turn that into two guys, maybe even three. And he even, like, said in another tweet, replying to somebody else, being like, are you crazy? You can't get two solid guys for that going rate. The going rates are like $10 to $15 million. And yeah, for like probably some of the top guys, it would be $10 to $50 million, like a Kenley Jansen right here for $16 million is what he's expected to get per year. But we went out and we got a Jimmy Garcia for $5.5 million a few years ago.
Yeah.
And then we got a Kirby Yates a few years before that for $4.5. So if you're looking for those type of deals where middle relievers with some upside kind of guys, you want to shoot your bullets on 2, 3, hell, even 4 of those guys, maybe 2 or 3 hit, and you're looking a lot better than you were before.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we do need to bring up the fact that Kirby Yates didn't pitch a single inning for us, and
that's the risk involved.
Again, that is part of the risk, but I think that they're assuming that for the same amount of risk that Jordan Romano would have been, you can probably find two guys of, similar value that share similar risks just for less money. And actually, Kirby Yates is a great example. I think he's available actually this offseason. So theoretically, the Toronto Blue Jays could try to run that one back. I'm not sure what the going rate for him would be this offseason, but I mean, I can't imagine that it would be too much more than what Romano would have got paid.
4.5 is what they're saying. I highly doubt that because I think Kirby Yates had a phenomenal season with
That's
the
the
Texas
thing. I
Rangers.
thought he actually did pretty well last year.
Yeah.
So $4.5 million seems like kind of a steal for a 1.17 33 save guy.
Granted, 38 years old, but 33 saves, 1.17 year, right? Like, look, you're probably not going to cost 4.5, but hell, 5.56, one more year.
Well, and here's the thing, right? That guy, yes, he's old. And yes, he's had injuries before, but would you rather pay Kirby Yates coming off of that year $7.75 million or Jordan Romano coming off this year? You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather do that for that money.
This is better than Jordan has ever pitched in his ever.
Correct.
You know, at a later age. And if he regresses a little bit, well, then he's Jordan Romano.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And hell, maybe he doesn't even get $7 or $8 million, and then you could take that other bit of change and sweeten the deal on something else, right?
Yeah.
So the more I, when it first happened, the Jordan Romano cutting, the more I think about it, it does make sense. I mean, Jordan, when looking at the stats, is a was a great pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. Third all-time in saves for us, and, obviously being Canadian, he sweetens the deal, and it's a nice complimentary thing. But, overall, Jordan had his time with us. He was a little bit shaky at times. The whip doesn't really reflect, because the earned run average was very good. The whip was a little bit higher. I mean, how many times have you seen Jordan Romano lead off a guy with a triple and we're sweating out the rest of the innings, right?
Let's be completely honest, right? Like, Romano was stressful.
He was very stressful.
That's just how he played the game, man. Like, sometimes that slider was crazy,
right.
And then other times that thing was hanging in the middle of the zone.
It was hanging. He was wild. And yes, did he get the job done? Yeah, he did get the job done
more times than not.
More times than not, but it was very stressful. And now with the injury and the underperformance last year, I think this was, and the price tag, I think this is a way for the Blue Jays to make a good reason to move on and get somebody else.
Now, and I agree with all of those things. I really, really do. I think that, with everything that we've been said, it does make sense. Mm-hmm. However, it only makes sense if Ross Atkins and the boys go out and, like I was saying this whole time, reinvest that money into 1 or 2 or 3 or fucking 8 other bullpen guys.
Get a whole new bullpen.
That's the situation that we're in right now. This only ever is going to make sense if they do, in fact, go out and land these guys, because that's a whole other thing, right? You got to, now that you did this, you actually got to land the guys and sign them, because if in a couple months from now we're looking back at this and going, okay, well, where's the fill-in for Romano?
Right.
Then obviously in hindsight, this will have been a horrible move.
We've got a question coming up later from one of the fans in the chat here, but it's talking about do you trust the management to go out and do that? Well, I don't trust them to do a lot of things, but if there's something I'm going to have to put my trust in, is that they will go out and get some other kind of guy. They wouldn't cut him if they didn't know that there was going to be a closer in line.
That's the thing, right? Like, I guess maybe I'm putting too much faith in them here, but I feel like if you're going to cut him, then that means you already have a couple backup plans lined up, ready to go. That it's like, okay, we know that we're going to target this guy, this guy, this guy. We've had good conversations with this guy's agent already. We're feeling strong about it. Like, all of that needs to be in line and in place for me. And if it's not, and the Blue Jays are just like, oh, hope we get someone, then I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, those conversations, have already got to be happening.
They must have already been, going on, right?
You've got to imagine, right, that they were kind of, if not, then they're a completely incompetent organization, and I would have, again, I always say,
it would be like the umpteenth time that I've realized that.
I know, dude, it's always a full circle of fire Ross Atkins, okay, maybe we were in on these guys, got hope, oh, let's go win, oh, we lost, fire Ross Atkins, it's a circle, it's like, it's we always get disappointed, but, there's a lot of guys they can go out and get, right?
There is a lot of options.
There's a lot of options, and I wanted to give a quick shout out here to Keegan Matheson, who came out with this article today. So if you haven't already, guys, go check it out. Just search up Keegan Matheson or Blue Jays News, and it's gonna come up. But he's talking about some options to go out and fill those shoes with Jordan Romano. I love the way he described this too. He says, it's the bottom of the ninth, opening day, 2025, and the Blue Jays are winning 3-2 against the Orioles. Who's running out of the bullpen to close the game? It feels like that pitcher isn't on the roster right now.
Completely agree. Couldn't tell you who it would be. Like, if you had to throw in anyone, it's Chad Green. But, I mean, here's the thing. That would never be the situation, because the only way that we'd be 3-2 is if Chad Green had already pitched. To get us to the ninth inning.
Who's getting us to the 3-2
right?
Inning,
right? He's right. It's not on the roster right now.
No, he's not at all, right? He's bringing out a couple obvious names right here. You got Tanner Scott. Obviously, there's a big case for the Blue Jays to want to sign him, right? I mean, he had an incredible year last year. Lefty pitcher. You want to add that because you actually do not have a lefty other than Brendan Little on this roster,
which is questionable to say the least.
It's very questionable. After the whole year, we had Tim Meza, and we're like, what are we going to do? We don't have any lefties. And then we cut Tim Meza, and then we cut, or Genesis Guerrero we also had on the roster.
Which we decided that we didn't want anymore.
We didn't want him either, so it's like, okay, well, now we do need some higher leverage lefties for sure.
Totally.
Tanner Scott would fill up that void. And then you also got Carlos Estevez as being another option, right? He could absolutely go out, get it done. He was getting a lot of saves for the Angels last year. And then you also got Jimmy Garcia. We could reunite with a Jimmy Garcia. Why the hell not?
Trade him again at the deadline.
Right, exactly, right? Kirby Yates, Jeff Hoffman, Kenley Jansen. He brings up all these guys. There's so many good options. It would be a failure of an offseason. I mean, obviously, we got Juan Soto. It would be a success. But it would be a failure of an offseason if you didn't get at least one strong bullpen arm, because it doesn't matter how many home runs you're going to hit and how many great innings you're going to have in the beginning of the ball game if you can't win the game at the end of the game.
I don't even think that, like, sure, yeah, it would be a failure if we didn't get that. That certainly for me isn't even enough, though. Like, you'd need to get, in my opinion, one really strong guy. And then probably two other, like, significant dart throws. Now, whether that be through the free agent market or whether that be through trade, because we've been talking a lot about how, well, you got a lot of people in that infield. Could you flip somebody like I don't know. I wouldn't want to trade him, but like a Spencer Horwitz for somebody who's pretty talented in that bullpen that has a couple years of control. Maybe you want to do that, right? Maybe that's the direction. But either way, for me, it's like you got to bring in at least three new arms into this whole mix.
I want 3 new arms that have very solid track guys that would feel comfortable throwing in the back half of games.
Or individuals who, kind of similarly to a Spencer Horwitz, it's like you got for several years of control, showed a bit of promise last year, and it's like, okay, we can buy into the future of said individual.
Two very proven solid guys, and then that said individual, because then you pair them up with, I do think Eric Swanson's going to have a bounce back year.
It's hard to get worse.
It's hard to get worse, and he looked very solid at the end of last year. And I'd be buying in on some Eric Swanson stocks. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. Chad Green's always been very reliable in that Blue Jays bullpen for last year, and so you add that, then there's 5. There's 5 right there, and that's something to build off of. And then you still got Brandon Little that showcased some promise, and then you got some dart throws you can have down there, like Hagen Danner, or if you go get a starting pitcher, you can move Yariel Rodriguez in the bullpen. So there's definitely options if you go add 3 more guys. Now, Keegan goes on to talk about some more points. Again, give his article to read. But you can go and, look at maybe some internal options to close as well. Like, is it as crazy to think that even if they go out and add a few guys, like if they don't get like the closer, could Chad Green be the closer for the Toronto Blue Jays?
I mean, he could do some, but it's almost like I'd want to have like a closer by committee at that point.
That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if Chad Green's the guy that dominates every single 9th inning, right? Like if you want to have him there, it's like, okay, well, now we got a bit of a closer by committee. So when he's hot, he's in. And then, there's going to be that time period where he's, blowing some games. Yeah. So then we're going to give it to this other guy for a little while. Maybe maybe it'll be a matchup thing. Maybe if we get, some type of relatively high leverage lefty, then like maybe that guy can be, jumping in here too. But I don't know, man. I do feel like regardless of this, there needs to be external options coming in.
Yeah, there absolutely does. Like 100%. You can't have a good bullpen if you don't. Also, shout out to 3 Point James saying Kikuchi signed with the Angels. Yes, thank you for the dono and thank you for the super chat. We are going to talk about that in a little bit. I saw some people like immediately jumping in and be like, Kikuchi, the Angels.
Shout out to Kikuchi for getting the bag, man. Not going to be coming back to the Toronto Blue Jays anytime soon. In fact, actually, never again. But shout out to our boy for getting the bag. We will discuss that a bit later. I also saw some people in the chat saying Rich Hill will be the biggest free agent the Blue Jays get. I was going to, I saw that initially. I was gonna like slam you for like talking about Rich Hill, but who am I kidding? That guy's gonna be eating innings till he's 50. So you know literally. What? Get him, pick him up. He'll work
if he wants to go in the bullpen and like be a long man.
Oh no, seriously, like that's.
I'm actually okay with that.
I would not be upset about that in the slightest.
I keep bringing this up. It's like. Ideally, you get 3 really good high leverage guys in that bullpen, but if like that third one, we can't get a deal, they're too expensive, whatever it might be. If you just want to go get a Ryan Yarbrough type or Rich Hill or Tim or whatever, right? Like, go get that to eat 2 or 3 more innings every 4 games.
Well, I think at that point you're looking more at getting a starter, because then you just turn Yariel Rodriguez into that guy, like,
which I'm for.
Of course, I do think that as for right now, is there a future where Yariel Rodriguez is a starter in this league? Maybe. I don't know, right? I still have hope that eventually that's going to be the case. But for right now, if you could develop yourself into that Ross Stripling that we used to have, or that Swiss Army knife where it's like, wherever we need you, you're doing it. Primarily, you're working out of the pen. Yeah. But if shit hits the fan and, 2 guys are down with an injury, then you can start a game. Yeah. Then that's good for me. Like, there's going to be time periods where, oh my God, it's like we've had 7 days in a row with a baseball game and everyone's injured and tired and we need people here to just eat innings. Right. That's kind of your role.
Yeah.
And so like I do think that, I hope anyways, that's the pitcher that he's going to develop into. And I guess that's why you're seeing the Toronto Blue Jays talking to players like a Max Fried or like other starters, so then you can just kind of knock him down one peg and set him there for a while.
Yeah, and absolutely. And if there's ever any injuries, like you said, he will go in the pen. But also, like, speaking of already injured guys, again, I don't want to ever count that Alek Manoah is going to be a guy ever again. But if he ever does become healthy halfway through the season, and it's like, oh, we have a spot. We have a spot. Maybe there's some guys struggling. Maybe Yariel's not really cutting it out. Like, let's move you in the bullpen and we'll see what Alek's got now.
You think there's any because I've seen some people talk about Alek Manoah like this actually in terms of maybe becoming some type of bullpen-esque arm. I don't know if he's ever going to be a primary, I'm a one-inning type of guy, but is there any reality where he could do that kind of, Swiss Army knife role, you think?
It would, logically, you could be like, oh, yeah, well, you're not the top 5 pitcher on this team anymore, so you can be in a bullpen, and we like you there, and maybe you can, like, cut out some of the bad innings potentially he's going to pitch in his outing, but I think the organization's going to want him to be a starter. They're going to at least try it out again until it proves that it's not working when he's fully healthy. Last year, it was a very small sample size, but it was good enough to be a starter in this rotation. It was good enough. We were like, okay, like he had a low 4 or a lower than a 4 ERA. I think it was like mid 3s in 3 or 4 starts before getting injured. And it was like, oh, and he's healthy again. And he looks good and he's back in shape. I want to give him the longest leash as possible. And we have him for so long. You might as well keep rolling him out there until when he's healthy, it doesn't look good. Then we might need to readjust or trade him or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to rule anything out. Like, there's, is there a possibility that one day he does find himself there? Sure, anything could happen in this league. Anything can just happen at all. But it is tough for me to really picture Manoah being a full-time bullpen guy. Yeah. And if he ever was, then I think that, it would almost be like a Tampa Bay Rays level of baseball where it's like, well, you're still going one time through the order and you're still starting the game.
Right.
But maybe we're not treating you as like, a quote unquote starter type thing. Either way, I would agree with you that I think there would be a lot of steps that would need, or a lot of hoops that we need to jump through before that would ever happen.
You know what I kind of picture him as? Ryu 2 years ago coming in halfway through the year and it's like, oh.
Right.
We needed help in
our good now?
Yeah. You're actually good, and you actually were great help for us in the second half. That's what I'm looking at Alek Manoah. It's like, if you can come back from injury, because we were counting Ryu all the way the hell out.
Totally, yeah.
Right, just like we're counting Alek Manoah all the way the hell out. Like, if you can come back halfway through the year, fill in if there's a need, which there probably will be. If we don't go sign anybody, there will be a need at some point or another.
Even if we do sign somebody, like, just the reality of the 162 games will kick in, and someone's going to be bad. It's just that's what's going to happen.
Getting up there.
Someone's going to be bad. We might even. It's possible. Who knows? Maybe we even trade someone away at the deadline if we're not doing great. That's still possible. Someone's going to be injured. This is a reality. So there will be an available spot.
There will be. So for me, it's like I'm open to it. Like I'm off the whole. I guess when it's so fresh when Alek Manoah won that Cy Young 3 and then he had that terrible season in, was it 2023? Yeah, in 2023. And then last year, having no ability to come back and getting re-injured multiple times. It's like, because we've been so distant from that great year in 2022. I dude, if you can pitch innings in a starting role, like, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm not banking on anything. I just need to pitch.
You give me anything at all.
Yeah.
And I'm happy about it. So that's kind of where we're at right now with the whole Jordan Romano situation, how it impacts the bullpen. Now, I see some people in the chat right now. Kevin saying Jays are rumored to sign Gleyber Torres. Is this true? Jays are rumored to be signing almost everybody right now. And that is because, as we've said previously, they are reeking of desperation. Now, Bob Nightingale kind of built on this a little bit in his recent article. This is absolutely a must-read, everybody. It talks about everything right now going on in baseball, not just the Toronto Blue Jays, but he did talk specifically about the Toronto Blue Jays, and according to him, we are the most likely team to overpay. His whole reasoning behind this was, because we don't have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. locked up, and because we don't have Bo Bichette locked up, and because this is Mark Shapiro's final season, if we want to bring anyone over here, we are going to have to give them the bag and a half. That much more than the other guy. Yep. We've been saying this. Bob Nightingale is now saying this. It feels like we are destined to go out and to get a guy and to put him on a contract that we will inevitably hate.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks because, I mean, we're facing a lot of obstacles as Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, think about how many negatives we have towards our team right now.
Oh, fuck. I wouldn't want to play here.
No, so first of all, you brought it up. There is no Bo and Vlad beyond next year.
No.
So I don't know if I want to play for you if there literally is no Bo and Vlad. You only won 74 games and we're the worst team in your division in a very tough division with the Yankees, Baltimore, Red Sox apparently going to be a lot better. And, the Rays, we never know how good they're going to be. I don't want to go do that on your crappy team. You're in Canada, so I got to cross the border, move my house into a new country and my
Which
family.
is, again, fine for us because we are both Canadian. We love Canada. But
not
for somebody who grew up in the Dominican Republic or wherever, it might not be that way.
No, in American,
or
too.
American.
Because
or anywhere.
You've just been in Dominican Republic, maybe a little bit more easier because they're used to kind of moving countries and everything. Whereas America, it's Americans, I'm here. You know what I mean? I don't want to leave here. So that's a tough ass, weather, obviously, location, we always have that against us. The taxes are always against us. And also, they also says here, we are the most underachieving team in recent years by going to the postseason and failing to win a playoff game since 2016.
You think that's true? You think we're the most underachieving team? I feel like that could be a bit of an exaggeration.
Well, if you count underachieving, I would say it's the Rockies. Being the most unsuccessful
maybe
team.
Just if we're doing that, then it's the White Sox, actually, probably.
Yeah, well, they were in the playoffs. Well, if we're talking the recent years, what do you count as recent? I was thinking last decade.
Okay, then maybe the Rockies too, but they were also in the playoffs back in the Arenado and
way
whatever.
Back when.
Anyways, we're getting off topic here, but I don't know. That felt like a bit of a stretch right there from Bob Nightingale. But we have been. Yes, obviously not achieving expectations for a while.
I think most overrated team is what you could probably call us. I don't think there's a more overrated team in the last 5 years than the Toronto Blue Jays.
Well, we're certainly not overrated anymore. I think that people are looking.
It's done now.
Yeah, I don't think honestly, I don't think anybody's going to rate the Toronto Blue Jays. In fact, probably they're going to be underrated coming into
We're going to
be
very. Our win-loss line is going to be, or win line is going to be 70s?
It's going to be low. It will be very, very low. Obviously, it depends on what happens this offseason, but I don't think anybody's going to be hopping onto the Toronto Blue Jays train.
No.
But again, that's an obstacle that the Jays are going to need to get over because just like analysts aren't going to be hopping on the Jays, neither are free agents, and that is why ultimately he's saying that it's looking like we're going to have to overpay. Now, I brought this up on the Bad for Baseball show. If you haven't already, go check out Bad for Baseball. It's another show that we do, just general baseball. But I was talking about that one point there, and I was saying it is so damn frustrating that everybody and their dog right now in MLB and in baseball are looking at the Toronto Blue Jays and saying, these guys are desperate. These guys are going to overpay. These guys need to go out and get a guy. But if that's the case, why aren't we going to overpay for Guerrero? Because the whole argument there that Bob Nightingale is saying is you have to go overpay for free agents because you don't have Guerrero signed and you don't have your future locked up. Well, if that's what everyone's talking about, then why don't we just sign Guerrero and then maybe we don't have to overpay for people anymore?
If you're going to overpay for anybody, overpay for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
That's the thing, right? He's here right now. We know how good he is. We know that he likes playing here.
And we don't have those obstacles of overpaying that we have to go through, like I mentioned. It's a clean. This guy wants to be here. He's already here.
Yes.
Right? You've been drafted by this team or signed by this team, and you come up with this team. You play with this team. You've already lived in Canada when you were a kid. You're beyond the obstacles.
If you're going to overpay for anyone, overpay for that guy, and then at least you can sell to free agents. Yeah. Well, now we know that this guy's going to be here for a decade. Maybe we don't need to give you that additional $20 million to sell you on the vision here.
Right. But now it's okay, why haven't they done that yet? Right? If that's so clear to you, it's so clear to me, it's so clear to everybody else, it's clear to Jose Barrios, it's clear to Bob Nightingale, well, they got to lock down Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Why haven't they done that yet? I brought this up recently where people have been saying and comments have been saying, well, why it doesn't make any sense for Vladdy to go sign right now. Wait till this free agent market passes, see what the price is out there, and maybe you can go to the free agency next year, be like the top dog like a Juan Soto is, and go get a huge bag. That's a total valid point. That's absolutely a valid point. I really wish I knew the behind-the-doors negotiations going on between the Vladdy and Ross Atkins and the Blue Jays front office, if that is still happening. Because if I'm them, I'm giving him what I think he should get next year.
Right.
And that's assuming that and I brought this up in the Bad for Baseball podcast too. It's that's assuming he has another great year.
Right.
We thought after 2021, oh, this is Vladdy now.
Well, that's
right.
That's the thing. That's why if you don't extend him in this offseason, you lose all your leverage, because right now the leverage that you have is we'll give you $350 today.
Yeah.
And that means that you now have $350 today. You don't need to run the risk of having a bad year,
right,
getting injured, just anything going right. You don't need to run that risk. We're paying for your risk factor.
Right.
Right.
Of course.
Now,
of course.
maybe if you do have your best possible year, well, you get $400 in free agency.
Right.
But that's a decision that you got to make, right?
Right?
We're willing to give you $350 right now, so you can negate all risk. And I don't know. Maybe we're not at that number. Maybe Guerrero doesn't want to do that. It's tough to say. But, I mean, that's why the second that the season starts, and if he is playing good, all leverage is gone.
Right,
Because, well, then I'm just going to go to free agency.
Exactly.
Now it is working out.
Right. I actually brought this point up as well on that show, and I think it's a great deal. You guys let me know what you think about this idea. You go and you give Vladdy his $350, right? You go, okay, this is what you're worth right now. Boom. Like, we know you want to play here. This is what we think you are. This is what you probably think you are right now. Boom. However, we'll give you some incentives here. Like, we'll do a kind of Garrett Cole thing where after 5 years into this deal, you can opt out, but we can cancel your opt out if we give you a raise of, I don't know, $10 million per year for the last 5 years of your deal, right? Like, and if you don't want to take it, or if you don't want to opt out, then okay, when we bought you in, we told you we'd pay you for 10 years, and maybe you're underperforming and you want to stay here, great, that's fine. But if you want to really go test out free agency but we want to keep you, we can kind of pay you a little bit more and know what you're worth from there. I don't know. Like, for me, it offers a little bit more flexibility.
I mean, like, have something in the contract that incentivizes you to keep playing well, you to give your 100% best effort. Not that we don't think it's going to be that way, but you know what? Money does talk, right? We've seen it time and time again. Money talks. So have something in the contract that incentivizes him to keep playing well, keep performing, and then on the flip side of things, give him that security that, well, if we're shit, you can leave. You know what I mean? Like, you can have the decision, right, to leave, and then, we would have the decision to then pay you more money.
Pay you a lot of money.
Exactly, right? Like, there are ways to do this that I think it works out for both parties. I mean, you're hearing stuff about Juan Soto right now, asking for an opt-out after year 3 and opt-out after year 4.
Right.
Like, I don't think contracts need to be it's 5 years, $100 million, that's it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's an old way of thinking. There are different ways of including incentives and including other stuff to kind of make it best for both parties. And I guess, what we're seeing right now is the incapabilities of the Blue Jays management to not be able to come to that contract with Guerrero.
Yeah. That's a great. We have a question asking about the competence of this organization. We'll get to that at the end of this podcast, everybody. But yeah, I agree. So I mean, well, hopefully we get it done, man, because it's getting close. It's November 25th right now. Winter meetings are coming up.
And speaking of winter meetings, in this article with Bob Nightingale, he does talk about how things are going to be very different these winter meetings than previously. Last year specifically, there was an executive or an agent, I think it was, that came out and said it's not going to be like last year, or it's not going to be like a year ago when the winter meetings were an embarrassment. Nothing happened. This year is different. Everyone is much more aggressive, or at least they're acting like it. So that I think it's the first kind of week in or second week in December. Is the winter meetings. Like December 8th, I believe it is. So. And that is going to be the time.
Oh, that's going to be a fun week, too. On this show, guys, there's also going to be the lottery draft happening.
Yes.
I think it's on the 10th, I believe, 10th or 11th.
Yeah.
We're going to be live for that. We're going to be doing so much live coverage of that entire winter meetings. There should be a lot going on. So stay tuned, everybody. Big shout out to David Popes for being a member of this channel for 7 months. Let's go, saying love the content, guys. Let's sign Vladdy already. And I hear you, Dave Popes.
Could not agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for supporting the channel for so long. Also, shout out to the 170 people that are watching right now. If you haven't already done so, please hit that like button, smash the subscribe button. Like we said, winter meetings are on the way, and we're going to be live. We're going to be making videos. We're going to be covering all of it right here, so you do not want to miss it. Let's transition. Before we get to talking about your questions and answering them, let's talk about our old friend Yusei Kikuchi. Traded him away away this trade deadline. Got a little bit from those Houston Astros. He went on to actually play very, very well with the Houston Astros down the stretch. I think he had like a 2.7 ERA with them or something like that. And, honestly, that was not only just credit to him, but credit to them for making all of the necessary adjustments. That was another conversation that it's like, okay, well, these guys just immediately fixed him and changed everything. Goes to show how, kind of incompetent we are. Yeah. Anyways, separate topic. He got the bag, $63 million, same contract as Chris Bassett.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy, dude. And listen, I love Yusei Kikuchi. I am so happy that he got paid. The fact that Yusei Kikuchi, who's currently got a career ERA of 4.57, I believe,
that's exactly
the fact that he is going to finish his MLB career making over $100 million is absolute robbery. I love that you did it. Congratulations, Yusei. Tip of the cap to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good job, Kikuchi. Honestly, I mean, I don't want to get totally off topic, talk about the Angels, but this is obviously a very Angels move. This is probably their big signing. I don't really see them doing anything more than this, especially with how much they already have on the books. But this is their guy. And for Kikuchi, and to circle back to the whole Blue Jays thing, I mean, again, he made one very major adjustment 2 off seasons ago before the 2023 season where he had his best season ever. I mean, he was phenomenal. He was an awesome guy. We were going to play him. We actually did play him in that wild card game. But the fact is, he made that adjustment and then never could adjust back. And then the league caught up to him. And then he goes over to Houston, makes an adjustment, and then the league couldn't adjust to him. For Kikuchi to be successful, he's got to be able to switch up this usage of slider, fastball, and curveball constantly. You got to constantly be changing your usage game in, game out. Maybe a month in, we just totally switch it up and mess up the game plan of other players. That's what you got to do. And I hope Pete Walker learned a lesson a little bit here. If you have a guy, you had a game plan going to the season, sure, it could be working, but until it stops working, switch it up. We got to switch up. We got to do something different here.
No, completely agree, man. Now, Mark's coming in here and saying it's not robbery, you noob. His second half stats are elite. Cry harder. Let me be very clear.
Oh, man.
I love that Yusei Kikuchi's getting the bag. But, Mark, if you believe that he's going to have a 2.7 ERA from age 34 to age 36 on the LA Angels, my guy, I got news for you. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say.
Here's what I'll say. Chris Bassett signed for that money, and he was averaging 3.4 ERA.
Yeah.
And he was the same age. The same age when he signed, roughly. Who would you rather have?
Yeah.
I think I know what I'd rather have.
All that being said, though, seriously, congratulations for Yusei Kikuchi, and genuinely wish him the best, man. Yeah. Genuinely wish him the best. It does kind of feel like the LA Angels are turning into the retirement home of the MLB. But you know what? You got your bag. You can feel good about it. Let's give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video before we answer your questions in the mailbag. Whoa! Time for a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. Hit your picks and knock it out of the park with Betway. Scan the QR code down below to join the action. Only available in Ontario. Must be 19 years of older to participate. Please play responsibly. Now, everyone, back to the content. Shout out to Betway, everybody, for being absolutely phenomenal. Monday Night Football, everybody. There's no baseball going on, so we're covering the NFL right now with the bets going on there. It is actually a really fun game. It's the Baltimore Ravens up against the LA Chargers. For those football fans out there, Harbaugh over there on Baltimore and Harbaugh over there on LA. Brothers are the head coaches, so this is just going to be it's not a divisional game, but it feels like it could be one just because of how tight they are and everything like that. Both very good teams, by the way. Both of them have 7 wins. Ravens have 4 losses. Chargers have 3. Chargers are at home. Chargers are underdogs. Maybe a bit of disrespect.
Yeah, honestly, dude, I was looking at these lines. You got 6 different kind of options you got right here from Betway. The alternate spread of -4.5 for the Chargers is kind of speaking to me because look at that multiplier of times 3.
They're giving them -4.5.
They're giving them -4.5 for times 3 multiplier.
So they win by 5.
They win by 5 for 3 times
home, they're
at home. 3 times your money. Ravens have had a pretty bad defense. Chargers have been surging recently.
Herbert's playing good. People are sleeping on Herbert. He's playing good.
I would ride with that negative. That value there for me is that's pot odds.
Yeah.
That's pot odds for me.
No, I completely hear you, man. Again, I think that this is a bit of disrespect, and this is one of those games where it's if the Chargers win, no one is good at, like, it's like now everyone is like, okay, they're legit. We're not sleeping on you anymore.
Yeah.
This is going to be the last time that you get odds like that with this team, if, of course, they do win.
Which I think they're very capable of. I mean, even the money line of 2.25, you know, that's very solid. An underdog at home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, guys, if you want to go check it out and bet on this game with Betway, scan the QR code right over here or click the link in the description, everybody.
Yeah. DWG saying, what is Canada doing without an NFL team? Man, you're telling me it would be, can you imagine if Toronto had an NFL team, whatever it, the Toronto Argonauts, they take that name, it's Toronto Argonauts today, the channel starting, the second it's announced, guys, we're going to be covering it. That would be electric. Let's get to the mailbag, guys. A couple weeks ago, we asked you to submit your questions. We got a link in the description if you have not already done so or you want to submit another question. We're answering 3 to 5 of your questions every single Monday and every single Friday on this show. And when we go live during those winter meetings, I can just anticipate that we're probably going to be answering a bunch of your questions as well as news breaks. So if you haven't already done so, hit the link and submit your question. We got one in here from Tempo saying, assuming the reek of desperation is a good thing, referencing the fact that the Blue Jays do, in fact, reek of desperation. And we do miss out on Soto, which is very possible. We would most likely have to overpay for 1 star. Would you guys rather... Now, he says sign here, but I'm going to change that and say, would you guys rather overpay for Max Fried or Alex Bregman, because I think that we can both agree we're probably going to have to overpay for whichever one they end up getting. Who would you rather overpay for?
I think I gotta go with the Alex Bregman. There's great arguments for both sides, honestly, but I'm going Alex Bregman just because we got to shore up that third base bag. I mean, I love Ernie Clement, but I mean, Ernie can go play second base for us if we really want him to go play every single day. Shore up that third base bag. He won a Gold Glove last year, and you want to talk about a guy who can give your lineup a little bit more length and veteran leadership. Go overpay for that guy. Will you be stuck with him after a few years? Probably. He'll probably age pretty poorly, I'm not going to lie, but that's what you got to do right now if you're that desperate. Now, on the other flip side of things, I mean, maybe you go Max Fried here, but there's a lot of good arguments to sign Max Fried because he is a little bit younger, and pitchers have a little bit more longevity in that with their arm. And yeah, he has a little bit of injury history, but there's a lot of upside there, and he kind of pushes down Yariel into that bullpen like we talked about. But if I had to pick one, just out of necessity right now, I'm gonna go Alex Bregman.
Yeah, and I do hear you, man. For me, I am thinking it's Max Fried, and the reason is I think I just believe in the talent a bit more with Max Fried, and therefore the overpay wouldn't be as much of an overpay. Now, that's assuming, of course, he does continue with what it is that he's done in the past.
Shout out to the sponsor.
Shout out to Betway again,
Betway one more time.
But in his career, we're talking about a guy that's got a 3.07 ERA, just very shy of 900 innings pitched. So, I don't want to say that he's one of the better pitchers in the last decade, but kind of one of the better pitchers in the last decade. He's been very, very, very good. And at age 30, I still believe that there's a lot of years left of goodness from Max Fried. So even though you're right, the positional need and what this team would benefit from more immediately is probably Alex Bregman. I think I just like Max Fried a lot better as a player.
No, I absolutely agree. I genuinely like the talent. And that might be the strategy this offseason. If they both want to sign, but you only pay for one, who's more talented? I'm going with
the best player available.
I'm getting the best player available.
I think Fried is the best player available.
He's the best player available, and then you go figure out another way to kind of fill up that infield, maybe go trade for an Alec Baum, which is actually our next question.
That's true. That is our next question, man. So shout out, thank you. I think it was Tempo there that submitted that. Thank you very much. We got one in here from Micah saying, since Baum is on the trade block, could the Jays go out and make a trade for him? Now that's Alec Baum over there on the Philadelphia Phillies. A solid year from Baum. Now did start to fall off near the end. Started out as an MVP candidate, and then second half wasn't nearly as good. That being said, though, this is still a very quality player and somebody that on the Blue Jays and in their lineup, this guy's batting in the top 3. He might be leading off. He might be batting second. I think Guerrero still bats third, but he's in there somewhere. He is a very, very talented player. I think that if there is, a favorable deal out there, the Toronto Blue Jays should 100% entertain it. I don't know what they give up for him, though.
Yeah, that's the tough question, right? Because, he was an all-star last year, but then significantly fell off fell off a cliff last year. Like, it was drastic. So do you try and lowball him and try to get get like the upside there? For me, I don't really know, because he got 2 years left on his deal. Like, I feel like you could get back, like the Phillies could probably accept a return, looking at maybe a top 10 middle infield prospect from the Toronto Blue Jays.
I'm looking at the numbers. They're definitely not going to give this guy away for free.
No,
exactly. He is still very, very good.
You're going to have to give away like a top 10 middle infield, prospect, maybe a guy who's already on the big league club that can kind of come off the bench, because they already have a pretty stacked lineup. So maybe give him someone that can play right now, and then a prospect. So I'm thinking that could honestly get it done. But the prospect would have to be high pedigree. Now, would you be willing to trade away? Let's say it's for Addison Barger for Alec Baum, and then some. Like what's another guy on this club? A Will Wagner,
Yeah.
Addison Barger, Will Wagner for Alec Baum.
If that was the offer, I think yes. Like, I just think that we're talking about somebody that went to the All-Star game last year,
right?
And if you're actually serious about being competitive this coming year, like if you were to trade an Addison Barger and a Will Wagner, I'll be honest, I don't know if that gets it done. I'm not sure. It's very tough to know exactly how the Phillies are evaluating him. But assuming it did, you were to trade them for an Alec Baum, and then you do go out and you do overpay for somebody like a Max Fried. I mean, I'm not saying that we're a playoff team or anything, but I'm certainly feeling better about it. We just got somebody that can be in the lineup, batting in the top 3 every day. I don't know if the same thing can be said for Will Wagner and Addison Barger.
Right.
And then, getting that additional pitcher can, really make you start to feel very good about the Toronto Blue Jays on a pitching side of things. So, no, I would, if that was the deal, I'd say yes.
I'd do it. I mean, could you hit big on one of those two guys? Sure, but for the next 2 years, you're going to get a solid quality player with an OPS plus over 100. And who did he drive in 100 RBIs last year? What was it right
good
there?
Question. I just clicked off of it, but 97. So pretty damn close.
Back-to-back years with 97 RBIs. Give me that. Give me that guy, please.
Yeah, 100%. Now, maybe he's not even batting first or something. Maybe he's batting fourth or something. Like that. Yeah,
screw it. Give Lottie some protection
on our lineup. Honestly, you can bet wherever the hell you want.
Hey, Eric's saying Bassett for Baum. Sure.
Oh my God!
Max Fried.
Yes. Are you kidding?
Max
yeah,
that's
not even a question. Yes,
dude, I would smash that. 1 year of Chris Bassett over there, age 36, for a young 2 years of Alec Boehm, who just got his first All-Star game.
Yeah.
And then give me Max Fried.
It needs to be to Eric follows it up saying Bassett plus. It would have to be.
You would have to be
Bassett plus, because I don't know why the Philadelphia Phillies would ever take that.
Yeah, Bassett or in Barger.
Sure, do it.
Why not?
Right. Final question here that we got coming in from Davis Jack. By the way, guys, if we haven't answered your question, we will get to it. We promise. Like we said, we're doing like 3 to 5 questions a week. But if
you already submit a question, submit one again. Right? We're looking for more.
Things change.
Yeah,
things
always
continuously change. But he's saying, putting aside all the player conversations and roster moves, do you guys have confidence in Ross Atkins and the rest of management to build a team that will actually compete in 2025 and beyond, or is it time to clear house and rebuild, starting with management first? Would love to hear your thoughts. So now it is a very tough question, because I don't think that you can really put aside all of the player conversations and roster moves when we're evaluating whether or not Ross Atkins can handle it, because obviously it's like those are kind of one and the same, right? What he's done with the roster is what's leading me to believe whether or not he can or cannot continue to manage this team. But the easy answer for me is that I've seen enough, and I don't think he's done enough. So, no, I do not believe that Ross Atkins has the capabilities to manage this team to a very successful spot.
No. Yeah. The end goal is winning a World Series. You had every opportunity with this roster 5 years ago to build a winning team, and you tried. You really did try. But that even goes more into my point of, like, you can't build a winning team because you had all the resources, you had all the money, you had the players in Vladdy and Bo, and you did it wrong. And you invested it, you put the wrong manager in there, you put the wrong people in there, you didn't do it. So what's going to convince me that you really can? So no. And to follow up on the second part here, it's time to clear house and rebuild, starting with the management. I think they already should have done that this year.
Well,
right?
Yeah, I mean, we always kind of get this question. Like we get questions a bunch about, like, well, should we get this guy? Should we get that guy? And I always try to answer them believing that what we're trying to do is be competitive in 2025.
Yeah.
I genuinely thought that it was time to consider the rebuild, or at the very least a solid retool, and that does start at the top. That does mean getting rid of Ross Atkins. That doesn't mean trading Guerrero. I think that actually means signing Guerrero. But
retool. Like, that's what I'm thinking. We needed to retool.
Yeah, you get rid of Ross. You probably get rid of Mark. You bring in some new guys. You probably get rid of John Schneider too. You extend Guerrero, and then now you're like, all right, new guy. You got this superstar on a long-term contract. Make it the fuck happen.
Make it happen.
Right? That's this is your foundation. Go. So I really thought that probably should have happened this offseason. That is not the direction that they're going in. They're really trying to, squeeze out any juice that we have left in this window. I guess just the hope now is like, do not screw us for the future.
Right. Which brings me into another question. Like, and I thought about this probably like 3 times after I read that question. Are we stupid in believing in this front office to make a?
But I don't. Here's the thing. I don't believe in it. Let me be very clear.
Okay,
I'm talking about this because this is what I think they need to do to compete. If you really asked me with a gun in my head, are the Toronto Blue Jays going to make playoffs next year, then I would have to say no, because I am not currently buying in on what this management has been capable of doing and the current roster that we're fielding. So, yeah, I mean, I'm obviously talking about how I want us to go out and get this guy and how I think this will help. Are they going to cross the finish line?
Do it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
probably not.
Do we don't realistically think they're going to get one of the big 3 starting pitchers or Juan Soto? Do you really think they're going to get the Pete Alonso? Do you really think they're going to get a Santander or a Teoscar Hernandez?
Okay, this is what I genuinely realistically think.
Yeah.
I think that the Toronto Blue Jays will realistically overpay for someone, whether it be a Fried or a Santander or a Bregman. I think they're going to overpay for one of those guys. I think that they will go out and sign 2 bullpen arms. And they might acquire one more kind of smaller IKF level free agent. Then we're going to walk into the year. I don't think that there's going to be a Vladdy extension on the table.
No.
We're going to see how it goes. And based on all of that, I would wager a bet that we are not a 90-win ball team, which is what you need to be in the American League to make the playoffs or to even have a shot at making the playoffs. So that's what I realistically think is going to happen. The good news for me and for a lot of Blue Jays fans is that sports are fucking whack. And if you guys watched any NFL football yesterday, you know that it is hard to predict anything.
Well,
so
if you watched last year, the Tigers went to the playoffs. The Royals went to the playoffs.
That's why we watch this game. That's why we talk about this game, because reality actually very rarely happens, and there are so many variables that we can't even possibly predict that are going to happen. So even though I think that's what will realistically happen, I still have a lot of hope that other things will go down.
And we only have the hope because there's nothing, that's all we can do is hope, right? What are we gonna do? Sit here and go, this will never happen. Good night. No, we have to sit down here and talk about this and give ourselves hope, because that's what sports is, everybody. If you haven't realized it already, sports is all about hoping that your team does great things. And that's what we got. So keep on hoping and keep on dreaming. Then Juan Soto's going to be a Blue Jay.
I just hope that we have a different guy at the helm in the future.
And we can hope for that too, right? There's lots of hope going around for a lot of things.
Yeah, but guys, thank you so much for everybody for tuning in to this show. This was a fun one, folks. Like we said, with winter meetings coming up, there's going to be a ton of more news breaking. If you haven't already done so, hit the like, smash the subscribe button, submit your question, everybody. Shout out to all of our Patreon members, our YouTube members. $3 a month, become a Patreon member and a YouTube member. You guys are so freaking appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and as always,
go Jays, go!